Hey, hi all. So today's session we are going to talk about syntax of variables and fields, like what are all the fields and how many type of fields we have and what is the scope of these fields inside of class. So when we talk about variables, variables basically using it to store values. More technically, I can say a variable binds an object in the general sense of term that is a specific value to an identifier. That is a variable name so that the object can be accessed later. So variable using it for storing value and same variable we can use it in the program to access value. So when I define the definition, right, variables are variables are right used to store values. More technically, right, a variable binds, right, an object, right, to an identifier, right, so that the object can be accessed later. So object means here, right, a specific value. Identifier means, right, the variable name. Got it? For example, string str title equal to welcome to syntax of variable session. So I'll read this value to print that using a variable here title. This is what the syntax of a variable. Correct? Name is identifier, right? And the string is, right, the object. This is the object. So this is the an identifier, and this is the object. Okay. So name is identifier, and variables and fields in C# is the value that would bound to it. The str title is identifier. Str title is identifier, and the string, whatever specific value you are storing, right, is the value that would bound to it. Okay. So this is what a variable syntax. So this is how you are defining a variable and reading that variable to access the values. So then what is fields? Okay. Sometimes called class level variables or variables associated with classes or structures. Okay. So an instance variable is a field associated with an instance of the class, right? While a static variable or declared the static keyword is a field associated with the type itself. So fields can be associated with their class by making them constants, which requires declaration assignment of a constant value and prevents subsequent changes to the field. So in general terms, field is nothing but, right, a variable which is defined inside of class, right? In C#, we have a four type of variables: instance variables, class variables, parameters. So like that we have. Okay. Instance variables can be called field, class variable can be called as a field, a variable, normal variable also can be called as a field, parameter also can be called as field. Okay. Field, when I'm saying field, right, sometimes called as class level variables or variables associated with classes or structures. Each field has a visibility of public, protected, internal, or protected internal, or private scope. Okay. So an instance variable is a field associated with the instance of a class, right? Class level variables are just variables associated with the class, right? And instance variables, right, is also a field, right, associated with an instance of class. That's why C sharp having four type of fields. One is instance variables, class variables, normal variables where you can define global variables or local variables, and parameters. These are the different type of variables we have in C sharp. So when you talk about instance variables, there are where the variables belong to class but are not static. Whenever we create an instance, that instance has its own variable, right? So these are where the variables belongs to class but are not static. These values get changed based on the instance, right? Whenever we create instance, correct, that instance has its own variables. Commonly in C sharp, such variables have a getter and setter. The getter is a method that allows us to read value, and setter is a method that allows to set value. Okay. For example, I have a student class. Instead of student class, I have some public variable, student name, public string, right? This S name, I'm just setting as getter and setter functions here. That means instead of this, I'm going to say get return S name. This is the get function, which will simply returns get value. And also we have a setter, that is set function, which basically, right, sets the value which you are passing outside of class after creating instance. This is how you are going to set setter and getter functions. So also I have another variable, public int SID. This is what my class. So these are the class variables, right? When I create instance to this, each instance is going to have a different value, right? Those different values I can set using getter and setter functions. Okay. So I'll explain more in the Visual Studio once we finish these definitions. So what is class variables? So these are the variables created instead of class, but these are static when declared. So whenever a new instance is made, then those variables become non-static again. Okay. So these are variables or static when declared. So whenever a new instance is created, then those variables become non-static. These variables are also known as static variables. These variables also known as static variables. Example, I'll take same example like, creating student class here, public class student. Here, I'll just declare a variable here, public static, right? Float P is 10,000. This is static field, I'm creating it. So while declaring it, these are class variables. Again, when I create an instance, these variables become non-static, right? So when we talk about this class level variables. Always these are associated with class, but while you're declaring these are static, but when you create an instance, they become again non-static. Okay. And coming to third one, variables. Variables basically local variables or global variables. You can call it as, right? So normally we create variables, right? When you define a method or a class. Okay. So when you talk about these variables, right? I can say these are local variables. Okay. These variables are declared instead of methods, not inside of class. So it may be that you are using local variables to store value from another class. Example, I'll take same example here, this same class, okay? And here I'm going to declare one method that is public void display message. The definition I'm trying to define here is, so I'm defining int repeat is 4, right? I'm putting some for loop to repeat this. Int I is 0, I less than 4, I plus plus, for loop close and end. So console dot write line of I, or you just give any static text. Hi, welcome to local variable demo. This will get printed 4 times. This is local variable. This is local variable because you are defining inside of method, but not inside of class exactly. Okay, even though it is inside of class, we basically looks for method. Okay, so when we talk about parameters, is the next type of field, right? Parameters. These are basically using it to pass object into a method. The method can use these variables to assist its behavior. So a parameter is used to pass objects into a method. Okay, the method can use these variables to assist its behavior. Example, I'll take same class of student. Okay, let me go to next page. So here what I'll do is, right, I'll be passing a parameter to the one of the method. This is one method, right? So I'll declare one more method, public say void, right? Uh, set. I think I'll change or I'll declare one more variable here, public string course title, right? This is the initial value, and I'll set this course via method name I'm passing as a parameter. And here I'm closing this function, but inside of this, I'm changing this dot course title with course name you are passing as a parameter to this function. Okay. So like that, this behavior is going to change based on the parameter you're passing. These are the parameter variables. This is the parameter variable. Got it? So these are the different type of fields in C Sharp as we define here, like instance variables, class variables, variables, and parameters. So instance variables, class variables belongs to class, correct? Variables and parameter belongs to method, correct? Instance variables can be defined inside of class, but based on the instance, these are going to have different values. but that's the reason these are non-static. Class variables are belongs to class. When you declare these are static, but when again create instance, these become non-static. Variables generally, as I mentioned, defined inside a method, which is using it for, having accessing values for some business logic inside of method. Parameters, again, using it for to pass object to the method. Okay. And it using it for changing the method behavior. Okay. And syntax of variables, as I told, to store values more technically, like, binding an object to an identifier. Identifier is a variable name and object is nothing but a value. Okay. I hope you understood like the syntax of variable and different fields in C sharp. And please try to subscribe this channel for more videos and other topics, further having continuation to this C sharp content. Thanks for listening to this video and please subscribe this channel for more videos. Thank you.